If you mention attention deficit disorder in a room full of people, you will be guaranteed an intense debate, if not a fight. There are a few topics that can create the amount of passion that is generated by ADD, ADHD. In my 35 plus years of experience as a psychotherapist, the only disorder that was as controversial was alcoholism. Many people believed alcoholism was a medical disorder, and an equal number of people believed that alcoholism was not a disease, but rather a moral and ethical failing. That controversy has been resolved, and the shame and passion around alcoholism has been dramatically reduced. I believe that we are in the beginning stages of the same transition for ADD, ADHD. We now have many studies that prove that attention deficit disorder is real and treatable. And when a famous spokesperson for the disorder is willing to publicly admit to having attention deficit disorder, these studies will become better known, and much of the ignorance, misinformation, and shame that surrounds ADD will be reduced. Much of the recent scientific research on attention deficit disorder has been provided by the Amen Clinic. Dr. Daniel Amen has pioneered the use of brain imaging in the study of psychiatric disorders. What you see here is a SPECT scan, or single photon emission tomography scan. This nuclear medicine scan measures the blood flow and electrical activity in the human brain at rest and during concentration. Dr. Amen has taken thousands of scans over the years of the brains of people with different psychiatric disorders. Due to this extensive research, he has identified particular characteristic patterns in the brain that indicate different psychiatric conditions, such as depression or anxiety. This brain clearly shows decreased activity in the prefrontal cortex. Whenever the blood flow and electrical activity is deficient, it appears in the scans if there are holes in the brain. The brain is the consistency of warm butter. It ebbs and flows depending upon blood flow and electrical activity. In a healthy brain, the entire brain would be engorged with blood and electricity and would appear smooth, consistent in both hemispheres, and without the appearance of holes. This brain clearly shows the consistent pattern of attention deficit disorder. The blood and electricity in the prefrontal cortex is severely impaired. This is what attention deficit disorder looks like on a brain scan. This takes the guesswork not only out of whether a person has ADD, but also resolves the conflict of whether ADD is an actual psychiatric condition. SPECT scans are rather expensive and often not covered by medical insurance. Each scan costs between $1,700 and $2,000. Many times the Amen Clinic does a scan at rest and one during concentration. Usually the concentration test administered is the Conners Impulsivity Test, which has been the standardized test for attention deficit disorder for many years. An evaluative report costs an additional $300 to $500. In the concentration scan, the client is asked to look at the computer screen and to press the space bar whenever a letter is flashed on the screen. The client is specifically told to refrain from pressing the space bar when the letter X appears. Someone with attention deficit disorder often becomes bored or impulsive and presses the space bar when the X appears despite the directions. Each incorrect response is tallied, and the larger the number, the greater the dysfunction. During the middle of the test, the client is injected with a dye that essentially freezes the picture of the brain at the time the dye was introduced. When the Conners test is completed, the client is then asked to lie completely still on a table, not moving their head or neck, while a nuclear medicine machine makes a complete circle around their head, taking continuous pictures. These pictures are analyzed along with the Conners test.